Good morning, and welcome to this sacred place, this special time, this community made holy by our presence and our commitment. I'm Jim Hardy, and I serve on the nominating committee. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual service this morning. If you're watching us live, we encourage you to say hello and share your thoughts via the chat box. And greetings to those of you who are watching this at a later time. We are Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County, drawn together by a desire to grow in spirit with those around us and work in harmony toward a better world where every person is valued equally and has the freedom and the means to become all they are capable of being. We rejoice in this fellowship and in supporting each other as we follow our individual and often different spiritual paths. We have no dogmas or creeds, just the vision expressed in our 7 principles that point the way toward a loving and peaceful world. With open arms, we welcome all who share that vision, regardless of the individual differences that often divide us. This is a welcoming congregation, a safe space, a home for hope, a dwelling place of the holy. If you're new to us, you can learn more at uutc.org or on our Facebook page. It's good to be together again. I have one announcement this morning. This is the final week to make a contribution to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. UUSC is the only agency UUTC supports that works internationally to further the mission of Unitarian Universalism. Let's watch a short video to learn more.
UUSC has spent 80 years serving communities facing injustice. We invite you to join us as we move deeper into the work of advancing human rights across the globe. Our world is crying out for us to face and address challenging, complex, and intersecting human rights issues like climate justice, dehumanizing and deadly immigration policies, and the criminalization of people because of their identities. At UUSC, the heart of our work is a commitment to partnerships rooted in trust and respect. With our partners, we strive to affirm the worth and dignity of all people by advancing human rights and dismantling the systems that oppress people. The lifeblood of our work is the support of our members. Building collective power is the work of every person of faith and conscience. We need your support to strengthen movements for justice. Together, we are building a better world that respects every person's inherent worth and dignity. To join our Text to Action team, please follow the instructions below. It takes all of us to build a better world.
Thanks for watching with me. When you use the Give button on our website this week to contribute to the Charitable Giving Fund, those funds will go to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And because you give those funds through UUTC, they will be fully matched by the Shelter Rock congregation, doubling your impact. Please make a gift today. Our opening hymn is Gather Here by the Chancel Choir, First Unitarian Church of Oakland, California.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle of the 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 body, gathered
Our opening words this morning are found in our hymnal, number 439. We Gather in Reverence by Sophia Lyons Faz. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together, so close yet so apart, each hidden in our own secret chamber, each listening, each trying to speak, yet none fully understanding, none fully understood. We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears can detect, the hands can never touch, that space can never hold, and time cannot measure. I light the chalice with these words by Leslie Fall Cosbo. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom. We strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Each week we take a moment to light candles in recognition of those things which are on our hearts, our joys, and our concerns. I light the first candle for those who keep us safe, our healthcare workers, those in uniform, our first responders, and so many others who toil out of sight and recognition. May they also be safe. I light this next candle for those who speak out to gain justice and compassion for the weak and the oppressed. May their voices be strong and their efforts successful. This next candle is for our leaders who govern in this time of great division and uncertainty. May they and all of us find the way to help heal this divided nation and address the many challenges we face. This next candle is for a return to sanity, to truth, to compassion, to love. And finally, I light a candle for each of us who carry burdens, both seen and unseen. May we find strength, comfort, and peace. Our next hymn is I Brought My Spirit to the Sea, sung for us this morning by John Arterton, Vanessa Cowie, Sharon Gublow, James Mack, Reverend Bob Rangillian, and Kay Webb.
I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. And then there came a sense of peace, some whispered calmed my soul. Some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit whole. I brought my spirit to the trees that loomed against the sky. I touched each wandering, careless breeze to know if God was nigh. And then I felt an inner flame that fiercely burned my tears. Upright I rose from bended knee to meet the asking ease.
Our reading this morning comes from Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass, written in 1855. I have said that the soul is not more than the body, and I have said that the body is not more than the soul. And nothing, not God, is greater to one than one's self is. And whoever walks a furlong without sympathy walks to his own funeral, dressed in his shroud. And I, or you, pocketless of a dime, may purchase the pick of the earth. And to glance with an eye or show a bean in its pod confounds the learning of all times. And there is no trade or employment, but the young man following it may become a hero. And there is no object so soft, but it makes a hub for the wheeled universe. And any man or woman shall stand cool and supercilious before a million universes. And I call to mankind, be not curious about God, for I who am curious about each am not curious about God. No array of terms can say how much I am at peace about God and about death. I hear and behold God in every object, yet I understand God not in the least, nor do I understand who there can be more wonderful than myself. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God each hour of the 24, and each moment then. In the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that others will punctually come forever and ever. Please join us in singing our next hymn, number 12 in our hymnal, O life that maketh all things new.
O
Our speaker this morning is no stranger to UUTC, for he filled this very pulpit for 13 years. The Reverend Ernie Mills completed his BA in philosophy from the University of North Carolina at Asheville, a Master of Religious Education from Duke Divinity School, and a Master of Divinity from the Candler School of Theology at Emory University. He began his ministry in the United Methodist Church, pastoring several churches and serving for 10 years as chaplain and instructor at Brevard College. Ernie left the college in 2002 to become our minister here. He received his ordination as a UU minister in 2007 and retired in 2015, when the congregation granted him the title Minister Emeritus. During his time with us, Ernie founded and often performed with the musical group The Eclectics, and also founded and for more than a decade led a lively men's discussion group open to anyone within the community to meet weekly and discuss a wide variety of religious and secular issues, a group which continues to thrive to this day. It is with considerable pleasure and deep affection that I welcome back to our pulpit my good friend, our good friend, Reverend Ernie Mills.
It's good to be here. And I want to thank Alice Hardy and Jim Hardy and Frank, and now Catherine, just met Catherine, RK, and of course Reverend Bob for allowing me to share the pulpit here with you this morning, or this afternoon. I'm not used to this, so I'm going to have to get used to it real quick. This morning. Okay. It's great to be alive in Transylvania County. You all remember me saying that, and every time I would say that, Pat Hall would meet me in the hallway out there and say to me, considering the alternative, it's great to be alive anywhere on the planet. I want to thank you all for all the years that you supported me in my ministry here at UUTC, and I hope you're doing the same for Rob. And as I've said so many times before, you were the wind beneath my wings while I was here. I've shared this story with you before, but I'll share it again. When I look back on my past, I would say that my pilgrimage that led me to Unitarian Universalism was I was taking a walk with my mother. We had been to church. I was out of the Marine Corps, had been out for about a year, and we'd gone to church, taking a walk, and suddenly she stopped in her tracks and she said, "What if all this is not true?" Well, I knew what she was talking about. She was talking about church. She was talking about religion, Christianity. At first, I was dismayed because my mother was such a devout person. We went to church every Sunday. I was a little dismayed, but later I realized that she had really opened a door for me that gave me the freedom to question and gave me the freedom to search for truth myself. And so that, I think, really sparked what became a search for truth for me, which led to Unitarian Universalism. And for a long time I thought, well, I'm gonna find the truth sooner or later somewhere in a book I'm reading, or I'm gonna come across it somewhere, I'm gonna find it, discover it. And it took me a while to realize that that's really not what truth is. I can't give you the truth in a book, or I can't give you the truth in some kind of propositional statement or a dogma or a doctrine, because what truth is really is the way we're living our lives. We live truthful lives, and each one of us lives our own truth in our own way. One of the most liberating things I ever came across was something Carl Jung said. He posed the question, what does it mean to follow Jesus? And his answer was to live your life as truly as he lived his in all its implication. That changed everything for me. To live your own authentic life as truly as he lived his. I found that very liberating. There's something deeply personal about the search and our quest for the truth of our own being. Each one of us has to find that in his or her own way. And there's something very, very personal about that. I love the hymn by Shelley Denham in our hymnal. It's number 354. We laugh, we cry. In her last verse, she writes, "In our search for peace," and you could also say truth, "maybe we'll finally see even to question is truly an answer." I love that. Even to question is truly an answer. So, what my mother was saying to me, it's okay to question. And you need to question. And you need to ask the hard questions. What is the meaning of my life? What am I doing here? Where am I going? Where have I been? Those hard questions. And not just accept pat answers from out there. When I was in seminary, someone was reacting to the phrase, "Jesus is the answer," a professor, and he said, "Well, what's the question? What's the question?" I want to talk about, this is a phrase from Joseph Campbell. I titled my message, Eating the Menu. And I want to explore what that means with you this morning. Joseph Campbell gives this little story about this man who walks into a restaurant to order a beefsteak, and he's handed the menu. And when he sees beefsteak on the menu, he eats the menu. He eats the menu. Now, what is that all about, eating the menu? It's about taking things too literally. It's about not being able to separate ourselves from, let's say, a particular word or symbol and think about it, to not create that distance between ourselves and what we're seeing or reading, and being able to think about what it might mean. So really the idea that symbols, particularly symbols in myth and religion, have meanings that are not always easy to grasp. The Buddhists also have a teaching that's very similar to this one of eating the menu, and it goes like this. Just as a fool, on seeing a moon-pointing finger, looks at the finger but not at the moon, so one who is attached to words does not see the real. So every word, every symbol can become for us a reference to something beyond it that causes us to think about it and reflect on it. So it's not only that we don't see the finger pointing to the moon, that we sometimes grab the finger and we hold on to it as if it's everything and the real thing, and we nail it down, and we turn it into a dogma or doctrine and say everybody needs to believe in this, when we don't think that it's pointing to something beyond itself. And that's what I want to talk about this morning. The problem with eating the menu is that we don't see it as a menu. And the problem with not seeing the finger pointing to the moon is we don't see it as something that's pointing away from itself to something which has a meaning, and that meaning may be very, very vague. So, menus and fingers are pointing away from themselves to something else. We live in a world of symbols and words that mean things. Symbols live in that middle region between ourselves and that world within and outside of us, that world that we are invited to explore. They are pointers They refer to us to what can be known, or what is not knowable, or what is only partially known. I was driving in Black Mountain some years ago when I came to a stop sign, and instead of stopping, I rolled past. And I didn't know, but a policeman was watching, and he pulled me over. And he said, you didn't stop at that stop sign. And I said, well, I slowed down. And he said, well, if I got a billy stick and started hitting you on the head with it, would you say stop or slow down? And of course I said I would say stop. He says, well, stop means stop. So there's a difference between symbols and signs. Signs have a very clear meaning. Symbols are not always clear. We have to think about them. We have to reflect on them. We don't just have a knee-jerk reaction to a symbol. We think about it. We reflect on it. It's a good thing we don't drive up to stop signs and say, now what does that really mean? We think about it. We stop at signs because they have exact meanings. We know exactly what they mean. We stop at signs, we go at symbols. Symbols are invitations to think. They're invitations to reflect. And they often are symbols about our own lives and reflecting about our own selves and who we are. In his first letter to the congregation at Corinth, Paul wrote these words, "For we know only in part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love." Now that passage is from the King James Version. We see through a glass darkly. We see through a glass darkly. Symbols become transparent. We see through them, but only darkly into what can't fully be known. But listen to the same passage as it's translated in the Revised Standard Version. Because apparently there was not a perfect translation of this Greek writing that Paul wrote in Koine Greek. But here's the way the Revised Standard Version interprets it. "For we see into a mirror dimly." We see into a mirror dimly, only part of what can be fully known. And for the longest time, I thought, now which translation is the more accurate? Are we looking through a glass? Are our symbols, do they represent a glass that is dark and we're trying to see the world out there? Or are our symbols dim mirrors in which we're trying really to see who we are? Do they reflect back to us who we are? And I finally decided that it's neither either or, but both and. Our symbols are, some of our symbols are like a dark glass we're trying to see the world out there. Others of our symbols, particularly I think religious and mythological symbols, are mirrors that reflect back to us who we are and our nature, our being. And the human quest is one of creating these mirrors that help us understand who we are and what we are. So we reflect on a symbol which is a mirror into the human soul, into the human psyche. So we see into a mirror dimly. Every symbol in the mythical religious world points outward, but it also points inward to who we are and what we are. They tell us something about human creations and images and words, but they also tell us something about who we are ourselves, the creative impulses that give rise to our creation of symbols. Let me give you an example. Jesus is a sign. Christ is a symbol. Jesus signals is a sign for an actual historical biographical person. And that's what the quest for the historical Jesus is all about, to try to establish this known fact. Jesus was a known person who lived in 1st century BC, AD, and was a real person. Christ, on the other hand, is not his last name. I used to tell my students at Bavard College, Christ is not Jesus' last name. Christ is a symbol. It's a Greek translation of the Hebrew word Messiah, which goes back to the anointed one. Now, kings in the olden days were anointed by oil because oil was believed to have been a substance that contained power. And the Melanesians call it manna. And all sorts of different substances can contain this power. Oil was one, blood was another, but anything that evoked powerful emotional responses had manna, had the power. Lightning was manna, thunder was manna, the wind was manna, water was manna. All these different things, the priest, the shaman, all these people had this supernatural power. And so if we trace the symbol of Christ back in time, it goes back to that notion of power. And we could spend a lot of time talking about power. When I was ordained, the bishop didn't put oil on my head, but he laid his hand on my head and invested me with power. So I have the power. At the end of every marriage ceremony that I did, my last words were, by the power invested in me. So when I put that black robe on, or that white collar, it symbolizes power. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about that because really that's the power that you give me. Some people don't give the minister that much power, especially in UU congregations, and that's a good thing, I think, because there are abuses of that power. That's institutional power, but we could spend a lot of time talking about that. We find the Atman in Hindu is that symbolizes that power, or the Malunga among the Bantu tribes of Africa was that power. The Manitou of the Algonquin Indians, Manitou the mighty of the Hiawatha. It's just all those symbols are pointing to that same idea of power and what we do with power, and who has power and who we give power to, and how we use that power. One of my favorite sayings, and I don't want to dwell on that, but we could, but one of my favorite sayings is by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone, and as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others, people permission to do the same. So we tend to want to give our power up to others instead of claiming it ourselves. So what I would say is you are the Christ in terms of power. You have the power to determine your life and shape your life and not be shaped by forces out there. So Christ symbolizes that power. In fact, in Paul's letter to the Romans, he calls Christ Son of God with power. So you take this symbol, Christ, and you sort of open it up, and it becomes a door you walk through, or a window you see through, or a mirror you look into that reflects who you are. The same with Buddhism. You know, I bought this little statue of Buddha. Now, if you want to eat it, you can try, but it's made out of marble. It's made out of ivory. We don't eat the menu. That's not the Buddha. That's a representation of the Buddha. And so when you look at the representation of Buddha, you don't take it literally. You don't say that's Buddha. You say that represents the Buddha. And what did the Buddha teach? The Buddha taught, you are the Buddha. Everyone's the Buddha. Everyone needs to have this experience of awakening to the life in them and to the life they live, the life they have. So we explore symbols. One of the, there's only in one of Shakespeare's plays does he talk about the role of dramatic art and what he wrote his plays for. And he says this in Hamlet, the purpose of playing is to hold the mirror up to nature, to show virtue of her features and scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time, his form and pressure. To hold the mirror up to nature. That's what mythical and religious symbols do. They hold that mirror up to human nature to show us who we are, to show us the better angels of our nature, as Lincoln called them, or the worst demons of our darkness. When I came into Unitarian Universalism from United Methodism, one of the first things I came across in UU World magazine was an article in which some Unitarian Universalists were objecting to the use of the word God. They were eating the menu. They were taking the word God literally as if it was a reference to something absolutely known, and they didn't believe that. So I read that and I thought, well, gosh, I'm not so sure I made the right move to come here. Later that all changed, I'll tell you that in a moment, but God is a symbol. Joseph Campbell says, God is an idea. The reference is to that which is beyond all ideas. God means different things to different people. Some people don't believe in God. I personally have a hard time believing in an old white man up in heaven that's somewhere out there. I've had to battle with that childhood image I was given of God as an old man, a white man, and I've tried to discard that, but it's really deep inside me. I died and met God, and guess what? She was black. I love that by Henry Nouwen. God is a black female. I love those. Let's see, what is the other one that I liked? Oh, Paul says, or Carl Jung says, hunger turns food into gods. Paul Tillich, the famous theologian, said, God is whatever your ultimate concern is, that's your God. For me, as I've dealt with that symbol in my life, for me, God has come to be just a code word for a force and energy that's beyond comprehension. That's what that means to me. But anyway, it troubled me that Unitarian Universalists had that attitude toward mythical and religious symbolism, and there was a lot of controversy during my time here over certain words and their meanings, words like sacred, words like ritual, and I remember somebody saying, why do we call it worship? What are we worshiping? And it took me a while to realize, that's a good thing that we do that. We open up those symbols, we explore them, the meanings may change for us. A lot of us have adverse reactions to some of what those things we think they mean. But then, what controversy comes from the word that means turn. Controversy, if you go back to it, to the roots of that term, it means turn. And so it made me think, well, controversy is just our way of turning things around and turning things over and over and over again. And it reminded me of that little grain of sand that gets in that oyster shell. And the oyster, it irritates the oyster. But the oyster keeps turning that little grain of sand over and over and over. And after a while, you know what happens. That grain of sand becomes the pearl. And I thought, well, that's a good analogy to how we discover really the pearls of what's behind these religious and mythical symbols. We turn them over. We have controversy about them. Some of my favorite readings in the hymnal, I'm just going to share a couple with you. This one is about number 466 is about religion. Most of us think we know what religion is, but listen to what this person says. Let religion be to us life and joy. Let it be a voice of renewing challenge to the best we have, and maybe let it be a call to generous acts. Let religion be to us the wonder and lure of that which is only partly known and understood. That's a definition of religion that I never came across till I got here and read it here. It's by Vincent Silman. The other one is, 441 is to worship. We all assume now, what is worship? But if we see that as a symbol, instead of eating the menu, we explore it. Here's what this person says. This is Jacob Trapp. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive before a tree, astir with the wind, or passing shadow of a cloud. Worship is the mystery within us reaching out to the mystery beyond. I love that definition of religion. Symbols change their meanings as we explore them and as we explore what they mean for ourselves. The last one is reverence. We had a big controversy over that term a couple of years ago at General Assembly. Some people wanted to change the seventh principle to read reverence for the web of life instead of respect, but a lot of people didn't like that symbol or that word reverence. This is reading 439. We gather in reverence. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life. It doesn't get any better than that for me. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together, so close yet so apart, yet none fully understanding, none fully understood. I love those readings. They give a new depth to the meaning of what you might call old symbols. They give new life to those old symbols as we explore them. So that it took me a while to realize it was a good thing that here at Unitarian, in UU congregations, we explore these terms. We have controversies about them. Where does all this lead us? To me, it simply says to me, open up. Open up. Open up to the wonder and the mystery of life. I am a mystery unto myself. I don't know myself. Sometimes I think I do. Other times I think I don't. There's so much to learn. You know, Helen Keller once said, education should humble us. Shouldn't make us proud or arrogant. Education should humble us, because the more we learn, the more we realize there is so much that we'll never know. There's so much we'll never learn. Nicholas of Cusa coined the phrase learned ignorance. Learned ignorance. Now that's different from an unlearned ignorance, where you want to be ignorant, you choose to be ignorant. This is a learned ignorance that the more, again, back to that, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So exploring symbolism and avoiding eating the menu and taking things literally, but rather exploring them and deepening our understanding of them gives us a certain humility. That's an interesting word to explore too. Humility. It comes from the word humus, soil. Soil. So in being humble, you're well grounded. You're well grounded. So my message really is deepen the wonder and the mystery of life, and always be learning and always be open. Thank you. And I want to give you these closing words from Joseph Campbell. Y'all have heard me talk about Joseph Campbell before, haven't you? And Carl Jung. This is from Joseph Campbell, Reflections on the Art of Living. The goal of the journey down to the jewel point is to find those levels in the soul that open, and finally open to the mystery of yourself being Buddha consciousness or the Christ. That's the journey. Awe is what moves us forward. It is all about finding that still point in your mind where commitment drops away. Thank you. Closing hymn is I Still Believe, sung by James Mack and John Arterton.
Hello, everybody. John and James here again.
Down in Gulfport, Florida, here's a wonderful song by a great songwriter named Laura Love.
It's been a mean, cruel season. It's been crazy, crazy hard.
And for no good reason, my universe has come apart.
I've been so uneasy, and I'm trying not to burn, 'cause I know that it's kindness that we're all here to learn. And I still believe in kindness, and I still believe in love. I know the power of a gentle touch when the going gets rough. I will not be bitter,
I will not be small,
'cause if I choose to harden my heart, I'm nothing at all. Some days I don't get up, go out of my room.
I'm so broken-hearted, I don't even know how to
Put my clothes together, to put one shoe on, to lace up those strings and open the door and carry on. But I still believe in kindness, and I still believe in love. I know the power of a gentle touch when the going gets rough. I will not be bitter,
I will not be small,
'cause if I choose to harden my heart, I'm nothing at all. I still believe in kindness, and I still believe in love. 'Cause if I choose to harden my heart, I'm nothing at all. Nothing at all.
We hope that brings you some comfort during these trying days.
Yes, we love you all. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.